So here we are again then, another miserable result. Manchester United, this time out of the FA Cup at the hands of Brighton in the third round, a 2-1 defeat at Old Trafford at home. And that is now going to mean that United play a total of 40 games in the 2025-26 season. The lowest number, according to Andy Mitten, and I think in a few other places this has been put out as well, the lowest amount of fixtures in 111 years in a season for Manchester United. Out of the League Cup in round 2 at the hands of Grimsby. Out of the FA Cup in the third round at the hands of Brighton, who had rotated 38 games, obviously, to be played in the Premier League season, and no European football after the disaster that was last season. Can we ever catch a break? I've got to be honest, I don't see where one is going to come from at the moment. And as much as I do always try and be your hope dealer, in a sense, never too high, never too low, I'm finding it difficult today to have reasons to believe that this season will be in any way successful towards the end of it into May, because the plan's been thrown out the window, whether whatever side you fall down on, whether you're on Ruben Amorim's side there or on Ineos's side. If you wanted the manager to go, head coach, I did it again. If you wanted the head coach to go, or if you wanted him to stay, the fact of the matter is the plan that Manchester United were working towards, that we all thought was in motion, has been thrown out the window. And now we're in a period here where I'm recording this Monday morning. We're in a period where United are still trying to confirm an interim appointment to take over for the rest of the season, which just was not the plan at all. The fact that it is taking so long suggests that there was no fallback plan. There was no... look, if they were so bought into Amorim and thinking that this moving forward would be the plan and the appointment that was going to take them forward, then I suppose you can understand that there's no immediate backup. But the fact of the matter is, United have a Manchester derby this weekend coming up. I'm seeing that they return to training on Wednesday. It's Monday. It was Tuesday as well. They're going to have both of those days off. Getting back into training on Wednesday for a Manchester derby, which you just simply now have to win, although there's no real hope that they will, even though Man City aren't doing great themselves. It doesn't look good, does it? This doesn't look good at all. I'm going to be talking about topics today on the Promise Am podcast around that Brighton game, the reaction to it. Darren Fletcher obviously had 2 games in charge. I believe that will be the end of his tenure as the bridge between Ruben Amorim and the interim head coach, the interim to the interim. I think that's the right way to put it. I'll be talking a little bit about the Shea Lacey red card as well, which was a shame. It's a tough one, isn't it? I think it's an emotional situation for him and a lesson that he will learn, I'm sure. Some good points to talk about with Shea Lacey, but I think, unfortunately, that was not the way that he wanted his game to go. Diogo Dalot missing chances and then saying, well, we shouldn't have missed chances, should we? Benjamin Sesko scoring a goal. But mainly the takeaway from this Brighton game has been that what is there left to play for anymore? We don't really have any reason to hope at the moment that United can go and turn things around in the league. Instead, we'll be relying on an unknown quantity in a sense. Michael Carrick is now the person that is in line, that is in pole position to be appointed as the new interim head coach for the rest of the season. It's been between him and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer over the course of the last week. It did look as though Ole was going to be the one for most of last week, but I did get a message on Sunday night, and it has been reported in a variety of places on both Sunday night and on Monday morning as well, that it does look as though Michael Carrick is going to be the one that is installed in that role. Now, I'll talk about him, I'm sure, when the appointment comes. I'll talk about him a little bit more then. And maybe over the course of the week, I'll delve into what we could maybe expect out of Michael Carrick. He has had 3 games in charge of United before as an interim as well. He's had time at Middlesbrough, and I'm hoping, and that's all I got. All I got at the moment. Hope is not a strategy, but that's all I've got at the moment. All I can hope for is that Michael Carrick can imprint his footballing brain that we got to enjoy when he was a player at Old Trafford for a number of years. All we can hope for really is that he imprints that on the team and they are able to improve, but there's no real signs of that happening at the moment. There's real worry here that this season is just going to drift again. If it wasn't already drifting, there's now the plan's been thrown out. We're looking ahead to the summer to wait for a new permanent head coach that's going to come in, and we have no idea who that is going to be at the moment. So hopefully Michael Carrick can come in and perform some minor miracles. But I'll be talking about Brighton. I'll be talking about Carrick and the manager post, head coach post. And I'll be talking about my feelings just in general over the course of this podcast today. So please subscribe to the pod. I realize I'm not selling the podcast all that well with my demeanor and the way that I'm going about things here, but it is hard at the moment to pull optimism from any certain place. But if you want to wallow with me, please subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube as well. All the links are in the description. Follow me on social at @_Scott Saunders on X, Instagram, and TikTok as well. Please get in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Like the video, 5-star reviews if you would do so. I hope you are able to just show some support at this time and show some support to the team as well in this time, because we know that they're going to need it over the course of the next 5 months or so. And yeah, do all you can to support this podcast. I would really, really, really appreciate it. At @Scott Saunders on the socials is where you can find me. But let's talk about the Brighton game to start with, and maybe a word on Darren Fletcher to start with, because it was his opportunity, really. If there was going to be any chance of him coming into focus as being the interim for the remainder of the season, I know there's been some favor among some supporters that he could potentially get the job. There was a lot of it, a good swell, positive swell after the performance at Burnley in midweek. But, you know, I think the thing I was really afraid of with what I saw in Burnley and looking ahead to this Brighton game was, and stuff that Fletcher had said, look, this is not me trying to, put down the approach here, because Darren Fletcher he's never had an experience of coaching like a first team at this level, obviously. He's done really good work at the football club with the 18s, but I think some of the stuff that he was saying over the course of last week it made me think that maybe United will get caught in some certain matches. The approach was, and it's probably the right approach in this point, to allow the players to express themselves, to platform the players properly, and to get them, expressing themselves and being able to show the personality without restriction. If that was the approach, going out to express yourself, I always had the worry, really, that better coach teams who have plans from the very top would be able to maybe win those battles. I think Brighton was a game, I tweeted before the game yesterday that I think this will be a pretty open game. There'll be lots of chances, but I just don't know which way this result is going to go, because I was hoping that United would be able to, show their best selves. And after they scored through Benjamin Sesko for 2-1, I felt like maybe that we get that swell of Old Trafford, and maybe a possible equalizer, which over the balance of the game, United didn't really deserve for me. What we got instead was a Brighton team that had turned up. We know, we always look at well-run football clubs and always cite Brighton as just that, whether that's through recruitment, whether that's through team planning, whether that's through tactics, whether that's through tactical identity. We know that Brighton have been a good example to follow, and there are teams like Chelsea out there trying their very best to copy what Brighton are doing. United probably need to follow a path similar to examples of clubs that, like Brighton, have set over the course of the last decade or so. But Brighton rocked up to Old Trafford. They have a plan. They've done a good job of beating United before on a number of occasions. And they're a dangerous team, even though they haven't been in great form recently. We know what they can do. And I always feared that with the approach being to just have the players, as talented as they may be in certain aspects, there's definitely some players that hold this team back, but there's a lot of talent in the team at the moment. If you're telling them to go out and express themselves, it can be good. It can release the shackles a little bit. There was a lot of shackles with what Ruben Amorim was trying to instruct. But I simply think, right, that the game has moved on past just go out there, express yourselves, and show your best self. I think the things have moved on out of possession, in possession, through build-up and all of this. United did create chances for themselves, which I'll talk about in a second. But I think the overarching feeling that I had going into this game and throughout it was that United were meeting a team here that allowed their players to go and express themselves, but within the confines of a structure that had been implemented and carried on through multiple coaches over the course of a number of years. And Fabian Herzl has done No, they haven't been a great season, Brighton, really, but we know they have talent in there. We know that they can go and pull things off like this and go and win at Old Trafford. They've done it plenty of times before, and they've beaten some really good teams even this season as well. It is, or it was always going to be a really, really difficult game. This was not a game that, against lower league opposition that you'd expect United to win, even though they lost to lower league opposition in the League Cup earlier this year. This was a team that was always going to potentially prey on the United situation. And the game didn't actually start out that way. It was Manchester United who had most of the thrust in the early minutes, although this is a pattern that I think we have seen time and again, where United have started matches really well under whichever coach, and it kind of tails off after about 10 minutes, or they get a sucker punch or something like that. And the momentum of the game gets taken away from them. Diogo Dalot was a person who had a couple of chances early on to go and put United in charge and put them into the lead. It was him getting forward into one-on-one situations with the goalkeepers from right back. It's a trend that always seems to happen no matter who the coach is. It is Diogo Dalot in Erik ten Hag's last game going through on goal around the West Ham keeper and putting it over the bar. Ten Hag is sacked a day later. It is Diogo Dalot in Ruben Amorim's 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1 system, who's being put into positions like against Wolves in December, where he's through on goal in the early minutes and he misses that chance as well. Diogo Dalot again found himself in oceans of space through one-on-one with Steele in the goal and failed to ultimately put United ahead. And when you don't take your chances, when you miss opportunities against teams like this, and this is the fine margins at Premier League level, really. A lot of Premier League teams have really good quality in attacking situations, and Brighton are definitely one of those teams. If United switch off in certain moments, which they did in the lead up to the goal, Brighton took the lead in the first place in the first half, and I think that was the fear of dread, I think, took over. For me, anyway, it's more of this now, is what I was thinking. This is going to be a long afternoon. And when Brighton scored the second goal as well, you could feel the exasperation. I definitely felt it. You could feel Old Trafford feel it. And the rally that came from United in the end was just a little bit too late. Benjamin Sesko getting a goal. That's a good sign, if anything. Benjamin Sesko getting a goal from a corner. It's now 3 goals in 2 games. If United had pulled themselves out of this mire that they're in at the moment, they will need their striker to go ahead and start putting the ball in the back of the net to give them the best chance of winning matches. It's good that Sesko is starting to get on the score sheet, even in vain in this game. United he just had the feeling that maybe we'd see some sort of minor miracle out of United towards the end of the game after Sesko had scored. They had their tails up a little bit and things were looking okay. But I don't think it was entirely and wholly down to this moment, but Shea Lacey came on and picked up a couple of bookings in quick succession and got sent off. And it was a sad moment, really. You could see how emotional he was when he realized what had happened. There's a lot of debate about whether this should have been a red card or not. I'll just give you my take on this. And this is not down. I'm not saying this is down to Shea Lacey at all. The team performance just wasn't there over the course of the day. I just think that, as Diogo Dalot had actually cited, maybe not the best thing to do, coming out in your media interviews afterwards and saying that the red card maybe changed the trajectory of the game. I don't think that's the right thing to say at all. But I'm just looking at the Shea Lacey incidents in isolation here and just giving my take on whether he should have been sent off or not. I think for me, if anything, this was a game without VAR. If anything, I think if that first yellow card challenge that he picked up was in a game with VAR, then maybe I would have expected that would have been reviewed for a good few minutes just because of where his studs landed on the opponent's leg. He was brandished a yellow card in that instance, and then shortly after you could see that I think he was frustrated. I think he was looking to make a positive impression on the game. And look, I like that about Shea Lacey. I think for me, overly, like Shea Lacey getting introduced to the team over the course of the last few weeks has been a massive, massive, massive positive. I really like what I've seen out of him. I spoke on recent episodes of the pod talking about the confidence that he's showing, how he's willing to take the ball up and back his ability to go and take a shot or take a player on. There were even instances in this Brighton game where he looked to take a player on and got tackled. but still, he would try and get the ball back, and he would try to still make things happen. I think it's a really good quality for him to display in senior men's football. And I'm hoping that when he gets back in, he will get more chances to go and impress, because I think United have got a real good talent there. Just on this night, I think it was maybe not the right way of controlling emotions. And it's not his fault specifically. I think there's something he'll learn from. But when you slap the ball down on the pitch in frustration that you didn't get a decision going your way, I think as much as we may not want that to be, punished with a yellow card, I think I've seen that happen. I've seen that moment where players have shown a bit of frustration visibly with their use of the ball, and whether they throw it away or whether they kick it away or something like that. Generally, that's a yellow card. In this situation Shea Lacey was in, I think the two yellows were, I think, warranted for me. It's a shame, really, but you could see how emotional he was after realizing the mistake that he'd made. He put an apology out on Instagram and on Twitter as well. And look, I think this is I think it's a little bit of inexperience and a little bit of frustration just boiling through, because he came on and he wanted to change the game. It was a difficult situation for United. He came on and couldn't quite make it happen and showed his frustration. He just got punished for it. It's a shame, really, to see that Shea Lacey got dismissed in that manner. But I think overall, like, what I've seen out of him over the past few games is one of huge positives. I'm sure that he will learn from that moment. I'm sure that he will be a fixture in this United team probably for the rest of the season now, or in the squad anyway for the rest of the season. It's a moment that he'll learn from. And ultimately, when that happened, the game kind of did drift. And it would have drifted anyway if Shea Lacey had been on the pitch or not. It would have drifted away anyway. I'm absolutely sure of it. But United ended up losing the game. And now we're faced with the prospect of nothing to play for but the league for the rest of the season. Out of the cup in the third round, out of the League Cup in the second round, out of Europe just entirely for the whole of this season, based on what last season and their results were. And now we have the end of this small interim period with Darren Fletcher in charge. He went out with a message to players calling out their attitudes as well. Fletcher then reflected on the game and picked up this message. He said something along the lines of this: true character reveals itself in difficult times. So we learned a lot about the players in that situation, referring back to when he was a player, and a similar situation was cropping up at Manchester United at that time. So that'll be the same about these lads now. Difficult times, true character is going to show. So they have to dig in, show that they want to be a part of Manchester United's future and learn from this. And ultimately, if you're not, then I don't think you should be here or will be here. It sounds strong, but that's just the reality and the way that it should be. Now, pretty pointed message from him towards the players. He's done his best to platform, in his own words, the players that United have. But again, like, Darren Fletcher has come out and started looking at the way that players apply themselves in matches after matches, and is essentially asking them to step up to the plate. And look, this is the thing. I know there's a lot of sensitivity going on at the moment around the old head coach and now what's happening in the future, but this is the same kind of thing that Ruben Amorim was saying, and this is why I'm kind of despairing a little bit. If Darren Fletcher's realizing that this kind of thing is a problem, the whole time I've spent talking about Ruben Amorim for the last year has been centered around comments like this. If you don't want to be here, then leave. And that's the way that it should be. This is what Darren Fletcher is saying as well. So look, the Ruben Amorim chapter is over. I'm not going to talk too much about him, but I think I'll just remind you, I guess, and remind myself of what I think the issues are. And maybe I haven't said this enough, right? But I should obviously say all of this stems down from the top, right? Of course it does. We're talking about Ineos, and I'm talking about Ineos and the bad decisions that they have made. But there's a party and there's a family at the top of this football club that have owned it for 20 years who are getting away essentially scot-free at the moment because Jim Ratcliffe and Barada are in place making football decisions which aren't going right. So this directs the focus onto them. They've willingly stepped into this, and now there's a family who have absolutely torn this club down from the very top that are getting away with everything. They're getting away and not being in the forefront of people's attention. That is on Jim Ratcliffe and Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox at the moment. But this ownership and the decisions that they have made, the money that's been taken out of the football club, there's a multitude of reasons why we are seeing what we are seeing at the moment. Everything stems from the top. But in terms of what the players can do about it, the attitude that Darren Fletcher is talking about there, the attitude that Ruben Amorim has been talking about with these players for the duration of his reign in charge as well, that is the main issue for me, that these players can change or that these coaches can change. And Ruben Amorim was trying his best, even though people didn't like it, he was trying to get to the root of that and call it out over and over again. And again, I'm seeing, well, Ruben Amorim lost to Grimsby. Yes, he did. But the players are the ones that were on the pitch that day. And the players need to turn up and imprint themselves on the game. There's no reason why they should have lost to Grimsby, regardless of who the manager was or head coach was. I'm saying it again, I just think that we can pick through managers, we can pick through head coaches, but until those root causes are addressed in the playing staff, well, the ownership conversation is a completely different matter. I know there's going to be protests going on around the nature of that, and something needs to be done. But in terms of if it remains as it is at the moment, the only other way you can go and fix it is to get the cultural aspect of things right. And Darren Fletcher is looking at that and trying to call it out and trying to change it. Maybe Jason Wilcox and Jim Ratcliffe and Omar Barada feel like that is the same as well, and that is the route that they're going to go down. But for me, Amorim previously was the guy at the heart of the problem, trying to get to the root of it. If that makes any sense. But you know what I mean? I just feel like that has been thrown out over the course of the last week, and now I don't know how United will go about fixing it, because there's no person in charge at the moment, and instead we will have an interim trying to just get the best football out of the existing group of players without any real time to get to the root of the problem. I don't know. That is a reason why I'm a bit despairing at the moment. Let's talk about Michael Carrick, because it looks like he is going to be, as it stands, the one to come in as the new interim head coach. We don't know when it's going to get confirmed. It may be confirmed at some point on Monday, maybe Tuesday. I think, as I said earlier, the players are back in training on Wednesday. A little bit late for what it's worth for me, but if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. So we should have a few days in charge to be putting the foundations in place to play against Manchester City in the first game of Manchester Derby at 12:30 on Saturday, which is just not the ideal start for him, really. But maybe if United go into that and show a different self, then it could be a potential launching pad. I just don't have all that much confidence at the moment. But in terms of the choices between Michael Carrick, Darren Fletcher, Ole Solskjaer as well, it appeared Sunday night that Carrick had taken over. I think there's more talks to be had today and more outlining of what's going to happen. Coaching staff will need to be finalized as well, and the structure of that. Carrick will need to get his head around, if it is him, what he's going to do, how he's going to approach this tactically. But I think generally, and I said this last week, I think if this is the way it's going to go, the most sensible choice for United. And I think it's a bad situation. It really is. You don't really want an interim. Didn't really want an interim. I've got to be honest, because I feel like it's throwing the season out a little bit. But I understand if there are coaches that you want to bring in over the course of the summer and they're in other jobs or in international jobs at the moment, you got to make sure you get the right one. And maybe if they have, for example, there are names like, for what it's worth, I think that United really need a proven winner who plays the way that United fans want them to play, but also has a bit of a backbone. It's going to be really difficult to find that right person. It really is. This fallout over the course of the last week with Amorim and Wilcox, I do wonder how big a profile United will be able to attract into a role like that. I do worry. But where we are at the moment is Michael Carrick is most likely going to be in charge for the rest of the season. And I think it is an unenviable task for him. It's such a difficult job, such a difficult situation for him to walk into, but he has a great opportunity here to stake a claim for it himself. I'm not saying that I want that to happen at the moment. I've just said that I think that United need to go and get some kind of blockbuster appointment who fits the ethos of what the club should be. And that'll be really, really difficult. But Michael Carrick, all he can do is get a hold of this team and start getting them playing better, if that is possible at all. But it is the most difficult job, I think, in world football at the moment, to go and turn this club around. Nobody can seem to do it. Nobody can seem to do it. And it will take time. It will take money. It will take a lot. It will take cultural change. Because I think there's a group of players here that are just feeling the weight of it all the time. And that is so difficult to put your best foot forward. United have absences, and maybe those absences, when they come back, will make a difference. Brian and Mbumo and Ahmad are probably going to be back in training from Wednesday as well. So it's good that they will have that extra attacking threat going into the derby. But generally, there are intangibles here that I think United lack, and it will keep holding them back. I hope Michael Carrick, having been at the club previously, will be able to recognize that and try and get to the heart of what's wrong. But I know I'm just hoping for a minor miracle here. That is what I'm hoping for. And it's such a difficult situation for Michael Carrick to come into. I think, for what it's worth, the choice has been between Carrick and Ole. And my fear with Ole was something along the lines of what I spoke about with the approach Fletcher was taking early on in the podcast. And look, you might, I don't know, I might tick people off by saying the kind of stuff that I'm saying there, but I really think the way that Fletcher was trying to empower the players probably would have been similar to the approach that Ole would have taken. And I thought that would take you so far. It might get you playing nice football, but will it bring you results consistently? I thought, and I said it on the podcast last week, that I think maybe we would have got a naive United over the course of the next few months, who played good football, but ultimately didn't amount to much and didn't reach too far up the table because there were just simple things holding them back. And there's a lot of good coaches in this league, and there's a lot of good players in this league as well who would be able to damage them and make sure that they take points off United. And that was the big fear. What I'm hoping for with Michael Carrick is, and I will do more investigating into him over the course of the next couple of days. And I've got a conversation coming up with a good friend of mine as well, which I'll probably bring to you on the podcast over the course of the week, just looking into what Michael Carrick does and has done in his managerial career so far at Middlesbrough. But I am hoping for a minor miracle, but I'm also hoping that Michael Carrick, as I said earlier, the football brain that he had, I'm hoping that he's able to imprint that, because United have never replaced Michael Carrick. Never, ever replaced Michael Carrick since he left the club. It's absolutely astounding to think that, really, isn't it? The kind of player that he is so integral to like every Premier League team. Every football team really needs a Michael Carrick now in their team, and I don't have one. And they've ignored that opportunity over and over again over the last few years. And it's a big reason why the lack of that profile of players, a big reason why United aren't able to control matches. They've been a transition team for a long, long time. They're not a controlling team. They have never been. So I'm hoping that if you've got a coach that was that player, maybe he can enlighten some players and change their games, albeit briefly, over the course of the rest of the season, to get United more of a stranglehold in certain matches and keep the pressure on and pin teams back. That's what I'm hoping for. But it is hope, like I say. We'll have to wait and see how this goes. We'll have to wait and see whether Michael Carrick is actually the guy that's going to come in and be in charge, and wonder whether or when this decision will be made. But for me, I can't really escape the feeling at the moment, as much as I'm hoping for that minor miracle, that the overwhelming feeling for me at the moment, and for you as well, I'm sure, is that this season is verging on being written off, if it's not written off already. I'm hoping that I'm wrong. I really am. And maybe a day soon I'll be able to get back to the never too low feeling. I hope I haven't come across as never too low, but I'm just trying to call it out for what I see at the moment. This is a plan that's blown up in the middle of the season, and now we're trying to swim through the rest of it with a plaster again in this situation over and over again. My only real hope is not a strategy, as we have said and pointed out on this podcast quite often, and it's been pointed out on social media as well. Hope is not a strategy, but that's all I've got. That is all I've got at the moment, that Michael Carrick is able to come in and really make an impression on this team in the short term. So United are able to get back into Europe, get into the Champions League, but it looks a long, long way off at the moment. I feel personally less optimistic now than I did 8 days ago before the Leeds game. That's just how I feel. Maybe other people feel different, but we'll see how it goes. I will be back to talk more about Michael Carrick or Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, whoever that interim is going to be. We await official confirmation. It does look like it's going to be Michael Carrick, and I will be back to talk about him a little bit more in an upcoming episode of the podcast. So please subscribe to the pod if you've not done so already. Let me know your thoughts as well. Get in the comment section on Spotify, Apple, and on YouTube as well. Subscribe on all of those platforms. All the links are in the description. Get in touch with me on social at @Scott Saunders, the next Instagram and TikTok as well. And I'll see you soon, everyone, for another episode of TPL. Just hoping that we can see some kind of turnaround, but not optimistic at the moment. See you soon.